All right, hey people, Russ Jensen, Salt Lake City, Utah, about 3:30 in the afternoons on the 22nd of November, 2016. Now it's going to be part two, of the constitutional cannabis lesson group that I'm doing these videos on, taking information from this book that I've been writing called Constitutional Cannabis: Your Unalienable Right of Necessity. In part one, we talked a little bit about understanding the nature of who and what you are, your authority. Understand a little bit about the fact that we're going to be using words, principles, law taken directly out of your Constitution, word for word, and then building our positions upon that. And words, that's a very important concept, very important to understand what words really are. Now, that's the way that we communicate between humans here, either through speaking, little small mouth noises, a quick little pressure wave moves through the energy fields that we exist in, or in written form. And those words then have certain definitions attached to them. That's how we convey our ideas, concepts, and communicate with one another. Now, very important to understand the fact, though, that a lot of times words in our modern society take on a certain, definition, common usage definition that sometimes isn't the same as what it originally started out to be, or isn't the same as what's being utilized from a legal standpoint. So it becomes very, very important for us to begin to understand and start to train ourselves to think about what the meaning of those words really are. Now, I won't get into the whole thing about English language and all those things, but very, very important. We'll talk about those things also when we start writing some of our paperwork, because it matters how you write sentences, how you use punctuation, how you place words inside of a sentence, inside of a paragraph, inside of a your works. Makes every difference. Now, this comes into play a lot too when we start doing some of our paperwork and I start explaining some of the other processes that I teach, that I utilize to help me make sure that my positions are solid. And if I need to, I can actually rely upon them in a courtroom setting. That's one of the big issues people have. A lot of times they can't get their evidence in because they haven't done it properly. Okay? So, definition of words, very important. So as we're reading these things, you need to start training yourself to stop and then take the time to get a definition of that particular word. I do it with both the general, like the Webster's dictionary, or Oxford, any of there's lots of different dictionaries out there, what the general term is, and then also see if I can find a legal definition of it. Now, with today's internet, you can Google search the definition of, and then whatever that word is, or legal definition of, taking Black's Law. There's all kinds of different places. And what you want to start to see is that there's typically a lot of, or a number of different definitions can be applied to a particular word, depending on how it's being used, if it's noun, verb, pronoun, adverb, all those different things. So we want to take those things and start looking for the definition that fits closest to the concepts, or closest to the principles, or closest to what we're trying to get our position built around, to establish, bolster our position by the definition of that particular word. Now, from a legal stance, your legislative body, these guys, legal attorneys for the most part, have developed very complex arts of words, what they call it. Okay, becomes very important when you're reading legal documents, making sure that you check for the definitions that might be attached with that, especially legislation, because they can do what they do a lot. Is they'll be able to take a word, let's say like the word black. They'll say for this particular piece of legislation, the word black means white. And they'll put a little definition in there, and then they'll put a definition of what white means. White means green. Then they'll write the legislative act. Everyone's supposed to wear it's criminal if you don't wear black. So guess what? You show up there doing what? Wearing black. when in reality you're supposed to be wearing green. And that's what they do intentionally to trick you, to trap you. You don't think that's what's happening? Hmm? Now, I know we call that blatant, but it is there. The importance of words and the definitions of them is a key element for us to start to understand. Hmm? Key element of what we're going to be doing to help us establish our positions. Huh? And, so that we're conveying what we want it to mean. Okay? When we put our paperwork into our court filings, well, actually, even before that, filings we put in the public notice, it's another thing we'll be talking about, but not today. I define specifically what my words mean, what it means in that particular circumstance, in my particular situation, what I've established the meaning of that word to be. Helps me make sure that my position is clarified as much as possible, and it's to my definitions and my terms, not what the other side's going to say it means and misinterprets. Okay? A lot of times you got to remember too, got to think about these things, because what we're doing, we're talking about from the standpoint of being able to use a so-called controlled substance whose well, penalty is pretty severe for violation of those controlled substance acts. Okay, you're going to have to be perhaps maybe in front of a jury, prosecutor, trying to make a deal. You need to make sure that you are fully understood, that you are able to communicate completely, or as much as possible, and with as much clarity as possible, your position and why it is that you've done what you've done, and why you can do it. Okay? And that comes through what? The use of words. Now, if any of you are familiar with Malcolm X, fantastic. I mean, he had a huge impact on society, didn't he? I won't go into his whole story, but he got in trouble. He was in prison for a long time. After he got the whole thing of Islam and Muhammad and all that different stuff. He did a particular activity in there, an exercise, which I call now the Malcolm X factor, the Malcolm X exercise, that I say to people, hey, he read and then wrote down word for word, all the punctuation, everything else, the entire dictionary. Not sure which, I think it was Webster's, I don't remember the year. But it helped him to understand words and the definition of words and the power of the definitions that can be applied to words and a relationship between words. Those words then take on concepts and ideas, and their definition has an impact on the next word following it and its definition, doesn't it? Now, like I said, I'm going to make this some college level English assignment. I'm just saying it's very, very important for you people to start to train yourselves when you're reading documents of any kind to stop and think about what the words are, think about the context, think about what's trying to be conveyed, think how it can be applied to your particular situation, you and your self-preservation, in the terms of a contract or agreement of some kind. And if you need to, get a dictionary out. Examine the definition of those particular words and see what ones might apply, what ones won't apply in that particular situation. Helps us to have a much better understanding of what's being communicated, a much better understanding of how we then use that information to our advantage. Okay? That's all we're trying to do. Establish a position that we can then utilize to engage in certain activities and be able to justify those actions. That's it. So, you need to get a copy of the book Law of Nations, Emmerich D. Vattel. Get a copy of the Articles of Confederation, copy of the Declaration of Independence, a copy of the Constitution for the United States of America, and a dictionary. And when you're reading these documents, take the time, get the definition of those words. Now, I know you say, well, maybe not even have to get the definition of the or anything else. But if you recall Bill Clinton, that whole issue, White House, cigars, okay? He brought that whole issue down to what? The definition of one single word, didn't he? Definition of it. Pretty sure it was. Okay? You don't think that words don't have power. You don't think the definition of words means everything. And Mr. Bill Clinton was a fantastic attorney. Okay? Okay? Your governance is run and operated by attorneys. Understand the meaning and power of words. They understand also that most of you do not, because you've been trained not to understand the power of those words. Okay? So that's it for today. That's the Malcolm X factor. Understanding the importance of the definition of words and starting to train yourself to do that kind of research on what those words mean in that context, in that particular document, as we step through this whole process, because it's going to become very, very important. So, love everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.